All right, guys. So in this video, we're going to touch on something called identity access management, which is something I haven't talked about yet. So I'm actually kind of skipping a step here, but we'll cover it. But we're actually going to touch on a framework that is a focus of identity access management, or IAM, which make it pretty easy, which is called the AAA Framework, which the AAA Framework is used to basically make sure you are who you say you are. Make sure you have access to whatever files and resources you're trying to get access to, and basically keeping track of it after that. But let's go ahead and dive more into detail into the AAA framework and more into what it is. So the first part I already pretty much gave up, which is the AAA framework was developed specifically to give people a better idea of cybersecurity related issues that pertain to identity access management, which, just to quickly sum it up without diving too deep into it, identity access management, or IAM, basically pertains to people being like claiming using their identity to access different corporate resources and files and information that of course is confidential and proprietary to the company. So because of it's that important, they have to prove they are who they say they are. And also they have to check their system to make sure that they actually are allowed permission to see certain things. If they aren't allowed to see certain things, then they'll be denied. If they aren't who they claim to be, then they'll also be denied. There are three components to this framework. First, you have authentication, which I pretty much already defined. I pretty much gave it up, but the first A is authentication. The second A is authorization. And the third A is accounting, right? So we're going to go over these individually real quick. We're not going to take too long with this. They're pretty straightforward concepts. Also, quick detail, these three different steps, authentication, authorization, and accounting, they all happen in a pretty linear fashion. So you usually start with authentication and then end up with accounting, right? So here's how it looks. Starting off with the first A is authentication. The root part of this being authentic. So when we're talking about something is authentic or not, we're basically saying, like, if you're claiming that someone's boots, purse, and whatever designer brands they claim to be wearing is not authentic, you're saying it's not real. It's not what this person claims to be or claims it to be. When it comes to people, this is basically the same thing. You're claiming that you are you may be someone trying to impersonate another person claiming their identity. So the company has to double or triple check in a couple different ways to actually prove this. And they can do this by asking questions with answers that only the actual person would know the answer to. They'll do it by, if you have a company phone or laptop, they'll send a ding, some type of number to the company phone, which you use when you're trying to log in somewhere to say, hey, only our employee or a member of this team or whatever would actually have this device on them, which would receive this message, which they use to authenticate themselves or to prove that they are who they say they are. Another way to kind of illustrate this is pretty easy, is again with Naruto using his clones in particular, or any just anime where clones are pretty evident in the show and present in the show. You're basically trying to throw somebody off by saying that these clones, they look like me, they seem to be me, they act like me, but they're not the real me. That's why if you try to attack clones, like your punches just phase through or the clone will go poof and go away, they're not the real you. It's not authentic. It's not an authentic version of the character that you're trying to fight with. Next is authorization. Authorization basically means you have permission and or clearance to do something. We have figured out who you are, because again, remember, this is a linear model, so you can't skip steps. Once you're authenticated or you prove you are who you say you are, next is to authorize you when you're trying to access certain information. So if you're trying to access the highest level of confidential information for a company or for the government, for a military, whatever the case is, but you're like an entry level employee, those two things don't match. So you logged into your company laptop or your company workstation and you proved you are who you say you are. You've been authenticated. But now you're trying to access information that's too high for you. The system, once it confirms you are who you say you are, that you've been authenticated, it'll check to see, hey, does this person have permission to access this information? If the answer is no, then you get shut down. If the answer is yes, then you can go ahead and access whatever it is you need to access. Authentication proves you are who you say you are. Authorization is basically the system checking, are you allowed to even see this information? Is this information confidential to you or not? If it is, then of course you can't see it. Same thing with best friends. If you're besties, then someone that you don't know all that well, they may hear a rumor or something about you. They come up to you and start asking for questions about it. And they're like, I don't even know you like that. Why are you even trying to ask this information? You're telling them that they're not authorized to know this. You're telling them that they're trying to climb too high up. You know what I'm saying? What's above their pay grade? They don't know you that well. They haven't been around like that. The relationship has not reached that level. That's where you're telling them they're not authorized to know the information. They're not allowed. The last one is accounting, which is pretty much just keeping track of all, the different pieces of information, files and systems and things that you've accessed and that people in general have accessed. That's all it is. Accounting is just keeping track. Just like literal accounting with money, the way most of us know it. Accounting is essentially keeping track, or at least as I know it, one element of accounting is keeping track of the different transactions, money coming in, money going out. You keep track of it, and then from there you determine how much money have we spent, how much money have we gained, how much have we lost. Are we losing money over time in certain places? Is this picking up money or appreciating over time? Those type of details. Those are some of the things that go with accounting, and you're basically just keeping track of it. It's the same thing with tech too. When you're trying to access all this information, these different web applications, these different reports, submitting requests, placing orders, whatever it is you're doing, all these different processes are being recorded so that in case someone comes by to do an audit, if an auditor comes by, if you just need to, cover yourself to say, hey, I placed an order at this amount of time, at this time for these products for a customer. This is why I did it, because they didn't get you know what I'm saying? Then all of that information is recorded for your protection as well. That way, if anything kind of comes up, there's legal documentation in the company's servers that they can pull and say, okay, this is why he did what he did. He did this at this time. He was located or seemed to be located here at this time. So there's no way he did this and that type of thing, right? So that's what accounting is. And that's simple. It's that simple. That's the AAA framework. Nice and easy. So just a quick recap. You have three A's. You have authentication, authorization, and accounting. Again, authentication, making sure something is authentic or that someone is authentic in this case. You are confirming that they are who they say they are. The same way you're trying to clown on someone's boots. If you say that something's a knockoff there, you're saying it's not authentic. You're saying it's not real. It wasn't manufactured by the real company. The logo's off, coloring might be off, something's off. It's not authentic. It's not real. Authorization. Are you authorized to see this information? Basically, are you allowed? Are you at a level high enough or have the credentials, the permissions, and whatever else to see this information? If you're not authorized, aka allowed to see this information, you're most likely too low on the totem pole. If you are allowed to see this information, then chances are you're high up enough on the totem pole to see this information, especially if it's confidential and proprietary, meaning owned by the company that's keeping all this information to themselves in the first place. Then you have accounting, which again is just logging it, is keeping track of all this information, who accessed what, at what time did they access it, did they make any changes to the system or to any like records in this system, and they can keep track of all of those little things. That's accounting. So hope this information was helpful to you guys. If you have any feedback or questions for me, go ahead and throw it in the comment section down below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.